Hello everyone, I'm Tesaks and this is the story of puzzle pieces. I wanted to make this video years ago when I started this channel, but all the way through my game dev journey I always thought it would be just too boring and nobody would care. Well, I do care, so I'm making this video now, to get it out of my mind and better document the project. There are more videos coming down the line, documenting each of my entertainment related projects. And there is quite a lot of them. So, what are puzzle pieces? Well, to put it shortly, it's a reflex-based game about matching puzzles for Android and PC. You can get it on Steam these days for a few bucks. The Android version was discontinued due to Google politics. We might get into that further down the line, but I'm not sure if I'm not gonna just ignore that topic. Well, really, it is my very first game I started, finished and released all by myself. Needless to say, I made it from ground up in Unity. Besides music and few royalty-free sound effects, I made everything myself. The code quality was atrocious, but I guess that was to be expected. It was not only my first finished game, but my first finished programming project. Talking about programming, I'm not a good programmer, and I never have been a good programmer. I don't even think I'm a good graphics designer. What I'm good at is wearing many hats and understanding large-scale connections. I wanted to make a game since I was like 11 or 12, but I always lacked the required skills to do so. Or at least I thought so. So for the majority of my life, my goal was to get a team going, cooperate with someone else who knows how to program, and I might be able to fill the rest in. And I started few projects with many talented people and programmers, as well as I joined few projects as writer, world builder, graphics designer, tester or community manager. All these projects, besides one, never really went anywhere and just fizzled out over time. But unknowingly, I have been picking up skills and experience over the years. There was something else going over the years as well though, because I finished high school, fell to university, got myself a job and grew depressed. That is a story for another time though, but it has been this time, during which I have been fighting with deep depression, that I decided to get back to game dev again. But this time, I will be the army of one. I will start, finish and release a game all by myself, whatever it takes. Just to see if I can do it. And I did. But I'm skipping a good part of the story here. Let's start at the beginning. So I wanted to make a small, quick game that would be playable on both Android, iPhone and PC. I did a little bit of research on the major engines, their languages and available learning resources. This is pre-ChatGPT era, by the way. And I landed on Unity. Downloaded it, made a few testing projects, went over some of the basic tutorials to get the basics. And I dived headfirst into a project named Puzzles. I don't remember exactly how I came up with the idea for puzzle pieces. I just wanted to make something very easy to play on my phone, at work, when waiting for a meeting or something. I could play while waiting in a queue for my next match in a game I was playing at the time. Working on the game actually cured my depression, basically overnight. It reignited the flame of creativity and my desire to make something, especially games. But mainly I wanted to finish something and I wanted to show it to my friends, family and colleagues. I made plans to make a production grade game one day, and while puzzle pieces were supposed to be non-commercial free-to-play project, fate had a different idea for me and for the game as well. Once I got close to being happy with the game and being able to playtest it and release it, I started looking into the publishing options. I wanted to publish the game on Google Play, an app store, free of charge, no ads, no monetization plan, nothing. Just to put it there so my friends can play it and so I can say I made and released the game. But to do so properly, legally, and being able to dodge some of the pitfalls of game development and protecting myself from anything unwanted that might have sprung out of the game dev world, I needed to get myself a company. I knew all this almost 2 years prior to releasing puzzle pieces, and it took me 2 years of going back and forth with my employer at the time to get frustrated just enough to quit my job so I could establish Tesaks Entertainment, my publishing company. Looking back, I should have just published it without company, but my family had a pretty tough time running into some law issues through my lifetime, and I have learned a lesson from mistakes of others. Do everything the legal way if possible, if you don't want to lose sleep at night. Now, one would think that this is where the story is getting to an end, which is not exactly true. I had plenty of time to realize Puzzle Pieces cannot be the non-monetization game I wanted it to be, because I had company and no income now. And that if I want to have a good shot at the game dev, I must do with that what I have at the time. It means ads and paid Steam release, as well as many more projects to come. So I ad hoc added ads and monetization into Puzzle Pieces, as well as I started preparing for the Windows build for Steam. I also went out of the window because of the atrocious prices Apple asked developers to pay yearly. Then I paid a lawyer to construct the required legal documents for me. And more than half a year later, I finally released Puzzle Pieces, almost 3 years into making. The game was really made in 5 months, and it took me 3 months to add monetization in the form of non-intrusive ads and port the game to PC. Well, rest of the time was talking to a concrete wall, dealing with bureaucracy, learning how to comply with Czech, European, US and international laws, and figuring out how the hell do you even navigate these waters. I also made another game while this was all going on, the Walker of Aldenor, and I kinda wish I didn't, because I used a lot of flawed knowledge while making it. I wish I made this game once Puzzle Pieces were released, so I could apply the lessons learned from that process to it. Also, so I could have a clear and realistic plan for monetization of the game at the time of designing the project, rather than having to retrofit it into the nearly finished game that it was at the time. But I think that deserves a video of itself. Let's just conclude this video with the topic of the abandonment of this game on Google Play. Puzzle Pieces is a single player game, about testing your reflexes and getting better score than you did before, or than your friends did on your phone. There is no netcode, there is no online services, there is no data being collected, there is no required Wi-Fi, there is no database, nothing. It's old school, single player game. Yet for Google Play I had to fill in many times over and over and over questionnaires about how my company handles data. How do I comply with data harvesting politics? That in fact I do agree that the US government can request user data from me anytime and I cannot say no. And yes, maybe the provider of the ads, Unity, at the time, probably gathered some data if and when the users were watching the ad. So fair enough, I always fill these questionnaires and I kinda agree about like anonymity and users' data and stuff. The annoying part is when Google basically pushed me to refill these questionnaires once or twice a year, at some extreme cases even 4 times a year, and each time it takes a long time to do so, like it can take up the whole day, and taking off a whole day just to fill in some stupid questionnaires when you are like self-employed and you have a lot of stuff to do as a single guy running the company, developing the stuff, that's a lot of time that you are taking off for, well, basically nothing. You are never compensated for that, you are never given anything, and that request is coming again in like 6 months anyway. And also, annoyingly, the game like Puzzle Pieces gets eventually finished and done. There's not much you can keep adding into a game like that. Which means there are no future updates or expansions. But Google just requires developers to update their apps for no other reason than just to set minimum required Android version to higher version. Anytime new Android rolls out, and it doesn't mean that this makes the game work properly on the new Android version, this means that the older Android versions, below the minimum required version, are from that point onward unable to run the app, and Google openly blames the developers for it on Google Play. Like, they push you to do it and then they blame you. Let's be honest, I had Puzzle Pieces running on Android 4.1 this year. That's 2025, and 4.1 was released back in 2012. Why is the place minimum required version of Android 15? I don't know. My assumption is to drive the market because there is no other good reason. I mean, yes, there is the security and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean you have to literally ban anyone who has older version of OS than like 1 or 2 years. Especially since the game developers are supposed to be your enforcers of that for some reason. So yeah, that's why I stopped making games for mobile platforms and why I retracted all my games from there. I would like to dive a bit deeper into everything that happened around puzzle pieces and Google Play, over the years especially, as it really plays a crucial role in my game dev journey, even to this day. But I don't want to make this video longer than it already is. Like, we are at 10 minutes marks, and I think anything longer is kinda unwatchable at this topic. So let's just call it here. Next time we are gonna talk about Walker of Aldenor, and then we will skip some time and talk about Gems Defenders, I think? I don't know. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and I'm gonna catch you next time.